Fuck it. Okay, before we start, I want to say there's gonna be a lot of butchering of words, since, believe it or not, concavenator is from a country that has a language I don't speak. So there's gonna be a lot of butchering. So, just keep that in mind while we read through this, Wikipedia page. Well, time to get this shit show out of the way. Concavenator, meaning Cucava hunter, is a genus of carcharodontosaurian dinosaur that lived in Spain during the early Cretaceous epoch, about 125 million years ago. The genus contains a single species, Concavenator concavus, named and described in 2010 from a nearly complete skeleton from the Las Holias fossil site of the La Jolla Formation. Concavenator was a medium-sized carcharodontosaurian, reaching about 5 to 6 millimeters or 16 to 20 feet in length and 320 to 400 kilos or 710 to 808 pounds in weight. Unlike most carcharodontosaurians, the neural spine of the last dorsal back vertebrae was tall, creating a cell-like structure. The first fossil remains of Concavenator were recovered from limestone slabs of the Las Hora location, considered a Cretaceous deposit of extreme point fossils preservation of the Cuban province, Spain, which belongs to the La Jorva Formation. The remains were I don't know how to say that, by an artistical nearly complete skeleton of a theropod dinosaur, individual encased in limestone. Comparing the skull, 10 cervical vertebrae, 13 dorsal vertebrae, with the last two protruding in an unusual elongation, 5 spherical vertebrae, 30 causal vertebrae, a partial proctorial grip and arm. The private grav and partial leg, as well as ribs. This specimen was also found preserved in imagined trace, just as scale imprints on the feet and tail, which is characteristics of many of the Lascafida limestone with La Jorva Formation. In 2010, the specimen was classified MCCM-LH6666 and described by paleontologists Francisco Organo, Francisco Espinco, and Jose Luis used as the hyperplate for naming the new genus and species of Carcharodontosauridae dinosaur, concavenator concavus. The specimen belonged to the collection of the Scientific Museum of Castel La Machin. The genus name concavenator is derived from the Latin con in reference to the reason of discovery, the concussion formation, and Venator, which means hunter. The specific name concavus is taken from the Latin concavus, given a gryphons on the hump-like structure formed by the elongated dorsal vertebrae. In their description, the team noted that there were some arterial elements has to be left without removing the exquisite rock. Given the discast nature of the preserved traits. I'm sorry if I'm horrible at saying these words. I have trouble saying a lot of words. Though latinely described in 2010, a series of monograph of the taxonomy and hyperbole was published later, including exams of the feet agreements in 2015, as well as several anatomical reconstruction of the specimen in 2018. Concavenator was a medium-sized carcharodontosaurian reaching 5 to 6 meters or 16 to 20 feet long and 320 to 400 kilos or 710 to 808 pounds, 80 pounds. It's possible several unique features, including the two extremely tall vertebrae in form of the hips that formed a tall, narrow crescent point, possibly supporting a hump, on the dinosaur's back. The functions of crustaceans, however, is currently unknown. Paleontologist Roger Benson from the University of Cambridge speculated that one possibility is that it's an annulus to head crest used to visual display, but the Spanish scientists who discovered it noticed that it could also be a thermal regulator. Concavenator has structures resembling quill knobs on its ugula, a feature known only in birds and other feathered theropods, just as dromaeosaurids. Quill knobs are created by immigrants which attach to the feather follicle, and since scales do not form follicles, the authors ruled out the possibility that they could include the preserve of long displayed scales on the arm. Instead, the knobs have been thought to possibly acquire simple, hollow, quill-like structures, just as are known in both Coelosaurus, just as Dinlong, and some Occonusins like Thingolong and Physicosaurus. If an If the arcane quills are homozygotes, which bird feathers, they're preserved in concavenator and other allosaurids would be extinct. However, if arcane quills are not related to feathers, the preserve of these structures in concavenator would show that feathers have begun to appear in earlier, more primitive form of coleosaurs. Feathers or not related structures would Feathers or related structures would then likely be present in the first member of the clade, I'm not gonna say that, which lived in the Middle Jurassic. No imprints of any kind of anything were found near the arm, although extensive scales imprints were preserved on the other province of the body, including boards, related scales of the underside of the tail, bird-like scutes on the feet, and predator plates on the underside of the feet. However, the scientific case of quill knobs remains controversial, as some amount of skin marks have been raised among experts on physicality of the imprints that the earlier bumps represents quill knobs. Christian Forbes scholars noted that quill knobs of concavenator were on the other side of the uglia. They suggest they were entire lines that acted as tensions attachments. The hypothesis is that the bumps along the uvula represents muscular imprints, both points on or ridges was separating remains, and the result were preserved at 2015 meeting of the Society of Verdient Paleontology. Emma Casfingo, along with two of the researchers who initially described concavenator, attempted to reconstruct the form muscular to determine if the uvular bumps would be explained as an intermuscular ridge. They identified the imprints of points for the major arm muscles and determined that the row of bumps could not be located between any of them. They found that the only possibility it was that the bumps could be case scars for the Macalius muscles. However, this is unlikely because these muscles normally attach to the smooth surface without marking or bumps on your in bones. The argument that the most likely explanation for the bumps was their initial impression as feathers quill knobs. The authors admit that it was unusual for quill knobs to form along the pronoidal structure of the bone, but also noted that the same argument is found on some modern burns, like the Mears here. In 2018, Casfingo published her document, The Thesis on the Anatomy of Concavenator, which argued that the uvula was preserved in linear view. This means that the unusual bumps were possibly probably instead of as caused and modern claims. Caius noted that proximal parts of the uvula has affected by fragmentation of and absorption, which contains features that would have shifted when comparing into their positions in the bone while the animal was alive. For example, in the fossils, the later portrayal of the uvula is pointed forwards predominantly than the uvular bumps. In Allosaurians and Acrosaurians, the later ponies is on the lighter part of the bone, which would seem to support the uvular bump being authorial in persistence if the lateral cluster was truly preserved in Latin and in concavenator. However, Gassi and Francis describe how the later persistence was this point proven priority when comparing to the bumps and was not valiant evidence for the claim that the uvula have shifted into a superior view. The uvula disruption, as well as genus-specific proportions, means that preserved comparisons to Allosaurians and Acrocanthosaurians would be meaningless. As Kazafescu and her colleagues explained in 2015, the uvular bumps could not be in peroneal lines if the bones were portrayed in a Latin view. Callias Falulius and her colleagues pointed out that the bumps on the uvula were peroneally, which is unlikely that of Interius and Mumnius. I am sorry for all the mispronunciation. If you don't understand a single thing I said, just go read the document, the Wikipedia page yourself. In their 2022 description of that word of Mathenius, concavenator was reconsidered as an early Disraelian member of the Carcharodontosaurian, and in an unusual performing with Earcasluria, las Uvulator, and lus Uvulator. As a result of these probability analyses are displayed on the chromogram alone below. So we have the Carcharodontosaurian, Neovenator, my guy, these words, Acrocanthosaurus, Carcharodontosauria again, that word, Mapusaurus, Giganotosaurus, Tyrannotitan, that thing, and Carcharodontosaurus, the man who named the family, and Shakulong. Okay, I'm not reading all this. I think this is, I don't even know what all this is. Yeah, I think that's all the things on the Wikipedia page. Well, I mean, there's this, but who really wants to read that? So, yeah, I don't know why. This was a stupid idea, but I thought it would be fun. It kind of wasn't. It's just kind of boring. Just have to read a lot. So, if you enjoy this video, like the video, please. My voice is kind of tired from reading all of this. Maybe subscribe, comment down below something. Comment down below concavenator is cool. See y'all in the next one. Goodbye.